Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Dying to Know podcast. Today, we're doing a story on connections. I'm Diane Dobry, the host, and our featured speaker telling about his connections to his wife is William, and his wife passed in April of 2017. Welcome, William. Thank you for coming and sharing your stories. I'm sorry I didn't know your wife's name. So if you would like to just tell us what kinds of connections you have and give us an idea of what you've been experiencing, we're happy to hear what you have to
Sure,
share.
sure. Well, thank you so much for having me on. My wife, Irene, we had 27 years together here physically, while she was here physically. And she died of terminal cancer in April of 2017. From day one, Irene made herself known that she was still around and still participating and still interacting. As an example of that, one of the things that I did after she died in order to deal with the grief, and the grief was incredible, even though I already believed in an afterlife, she did too, of some sort. The grief is just, from my perspective, it's something that's driven subconsciously, and it's from the being trained during our life that dead equals gone forever. No matter what people say or what they believe, that's how they act most of the time. And so the grief was just overwhelming. It was crushing, despairing, like having everything ripped out of you. So I actually immediately started, because of my history, doing different techniques to deal with the grief, largely like PTSD oriented type of techniques. But beginning with day one of the things that I would do in order to combat the grief was to act like she was still around. That's one of the first things that I did. So part of that was I continued to pour her coffee every morning. And part of this is to kind of train my subconscious into believing that she's still around, which I hoped, I didn't really think it was going to happen. The
Right.
grief was so bad. I thought there's just no getting around this. There's no fooling myself into thinking she's still around, but I had to try. So I would still pour her coffee. I'd still talk to her out loud, which I could do because, after she died, I was alone in the house. I was very fortunate in that I didn't have a job to go to. I was self-employed, and it took very little time for me to do my job. And I would talk to her and, like put my arm up around where she would be if I was watching TV, as if she was still with me, that type of thing. And so what happened the first day, well, there was a lot of stuff that happened the first day, and it's too much to get into in the time we have. But the first day, what happened is this: in her coffee, which I set out, this flower appeared, because I always make her coffee the same way, with a half a packet of sweet and low and a little bit of milk. And
Mhm.
so, as if somebody at Starbucks was drawing in her coffee, this picture of a flower, which I have pictures of, just appeared in her coffee that first day. There were some circumstances where it didn't appear, which I could get into a little bit, but it's appeared in her coffee every single day since. It's not the same flower. It's like over time that flower has become incredibly detailed, with all of this very fine line work in it. It's just it's just kind of staggering to look at. And there were other times when I would be talking to Irene as if she was still around, and we would be talking about something, and the thing that appeared in her coffee would be something else, something that had to do with what we were talking about. It was really mind blowing. But I remember early on, I think this was in she died in April, so in August, the flower in her coffee, which was connected to some other signs that she gave me, but the flower in her coffee has just been appearing. It doesn't matter where I set the coffee or what the situation, like the various fans and air conditioners that were going on, it just didn't matter.
Mhm.
This flower would appear. And so at some point in time, I think some part of me just became convinced it was just some kind of physics, something in the shape, even though it wouldn't appear in other cups, something about the shape of the cup or whatever was just making it appear. Now, by August, and I know this is a really short period of time, but by August, I was feeling much better. And there's a lot of stuff that Irene did in this time frame that helped convince me she was still around. But I'm just talking about the coffee right now. There's another part of me going, this is just physics. So at some point, I was feeling much better, and I said, babe, if if it's you know causing you a lot of energy or kind of annoying for you to keep making this drawing in your coffee, it's okay if you stop. I'm feeling much better now. So the next day, I poured the coffee, set it where I usually did. Nothing. There was nothing in the coffee, and I was going, well, that's crazy. It was just smooth, a smooth brown color the whole day. And I was going, oh, that's kind of crazy. And I felt a little weird about it. And I was going, that's kind of crazy. What the heck? And so the next day I woke up, poured her coffee, set it out, end of the day, nothing, just smooth black coffee. And I realized I'd made a mistake. I said, oh, babe, okay. I was kind of started panicking. I think I made a mistake. I really want you to please, if you can, continue drawing that flower in your coffee. It's very reassuring to me. Next day I woke up, poured the coffee, the flower appeared. Very responsive. So there have been times, so she kind of plays with me with this. Like I said, she'll draw. If we're talking about something during the day about some subject in particular, she'll change the drawing. Like we were talking about a cabin in the mountains once. And what appeared was a drawing of a cabin on a mountainside. It was really stunning. It was really amazing. Like I said, I've taken several pictures of these things. And there are like hundreds of very fine lines in these drawings, but sometimes it's not really fine line. It almost looks 3D when you look at it, like there's a 3D flower sitting there. It's amazing. But there have been times where she kind of plays with me about it. It will appear different ways. Like sometimes when I'm paying attention to it, it looks like the whole thing is appearing at once, slowly, gradually at once. Sometimes it will start with this kind of swirling look that's going on. And then sometimes it starts and looks like it's growing from the base of the flower out, like it's like blooming or growing as the drawing continues during the day. And sometimes what will happen is, and this has happened, I think, 3 or 4 times, where I get up and usually it will start happening within an hour or two. But sometimes 3 or 4 times I've gotten up and have gone like 12 hours during the day, and I look in and there's nothing in the coffee. There's nothing whatsoever in the coffee. And I'll say something to her, kind of ribbing her jokingly, but I'll say something like, what's up, baby? You decided to take a day off? Where's my flower? And then 2 hours later, the full flower will be there in the coffee.
So you have the coffee cup out all day then?
Yeah. No, I pour her coffee and I just set it out. Actually, when I get up the next morning, I pour it out, wash the cup, and pour another cup of coffee for that day. This is how these things have happened over the course of the past 5 years. So this is like a couple of thousand times, that this has happened every single day. She
So you've
draws
been
this.
doing this since April of 2017. Every day you pour.
Right. Right. So that's one example of how she's in contact with me every day. I said that this tied into something else. When we had our celebration of life memorial thing for my wife, all these people brought all these flowers. So this is like a week later or 10 days later. And I've noticed this flower appearing in her coffee cup every day since she died. So we had this big memorial, and people brought all these flowers, and I brought the flowers home from where we had the memorial and set them up around the house. And so it was maybe 2 weeks later, all the flowers, everything had died except for this one pink tiger lily. I had thrown all the other flowers away and had this one pink tiger lily sitting in this little vase by itself. It was like brand new. It just wouldn't die. Much later, everything else had died. This one pink tiger lily was exactly like it was at the very beginning. It hadn't wilted one bit. And I was saying, well, this is really crazy. What is going on with this flower? My wife and I used to watch Long Island Medium. So when she died, I really couldn't watch TV because it was just too painful. A couple of weeks after she died, I said, okay, I'm going to try to watch this with her. I just got this urge to watch Long Island Medium with her. I've got Dish TV. You can record these shows and you can pause whatever channel you're watching. So I was playing this Long Island Medium that we had recorded, whatever the next one was, and she was working with this person. She had a client, a sitter, and the sitter had a breathing cannula on the whole time, which my wife had on the whole time for maybe the last year of her life, always had a breathing cannula. A lot of the things that the woman was talking about reminded me of Irene. I thought, well, that's really interesting. And so that segment ended. So I'm skipping forward 30 seconds at a time with my control to get to the next segment. And I skip forward 2 or 3 times and I stop and I think, did I just see a tiger lily? Was that a tiger lily, a pink tiger lily I just saw on one of the commercials that I just was skipping through? And I know I saw flowers, but I was wondering, was that a pink tiger lily? Oh, that would be weird. So I backed up, 15 seconds at a time and tried to find this flower commercial. I couldn't find it. It wasn't anywhere. And this is a recording. So I backed up. I couldn't find it. So I just went to the end of the last segment, and I let it play. And what played was some type of clothing commercial. And then the next commercial was a black screen that said, "Are you in pain?" It was some type of back pain commercial. And I went through all the commercials to the next segment. There was no flower commercial. I'm sitting there thinking, I know I just saw a flower. How can this be possible? So I backed it all up again and played it from the end of the last segment. And then the fashion commercial came on. And then there was this weird pause. And this flower commercial came on where the back pain commercial had been before. I was like totally confused. But it opens up, zoomed in on this pink tiger lily, exactly like the tiger lily that was sitting on my counter. The only reason I backed up, it registered that I'd seen what looked like a pink tiger lily. The only reason I would have backed that thing up to check it out was because of the tiger lily sitting on my counter, undead for, however long, and it still wouldn't die. And so that's the only reason any of this happened. And so I played it through, and it was a flower commercial that started off with a zoom on a pink tiger lily. And so I got to the end of it, and this whole other commercial came on. And I was thinking, what happened to the back pain commercial? I backed it up again to the clothing commercial, played it through, and the black screen came on. "Are you in pain?" Which was kind of related to what was going on because I was still in some pain. It came on, and I was going, am I having some type of cognitive dissonance here? So I backed it up, played it again. The flower commercial came on. Backed up, played it again. The back pain commercial came on. I was like, this is unbelievable. I've got to see if somebody else is seeing this, or if I'm hallucinating this, or what. Because this is a recording. My son came over one day. I said, "Son, you've got to see this. This is unbelievable." So he knew about the tiger lily because all of us were just going, how is this thing still alive? So I had paused it on the flower commercial. Okay. And my son came by a few days later. I said, "Son, you've got to see this. This is the craziest thing, whatever." So when you start up a recording after you pause it, it starts where you pause it. And I clicked on that recording, and it came up, and it was paused on the back pain commercial. And I was going, I paused it on the flower commercial. I went through this same sequence 10 times with my son. It never showed the flower. It never showed the flower, the commercial. And I was thinking that this is just crazy. So I tried to run through the sequence for him, but each time it did the back pain commercial. He never saw the flower commercial. And I was going, oh, now you're going to think I'm really crazy, son, because I swear, this flower commercial with a pink tiger lily, like the one in the kitchen, came on. He goes, "Well, I believe you, Dad." And I was thinking, no, he doesn't believe me. so he left. I backed it up and played it, and the flower commercial played.
That's funny.
So eventually, at one point, I just said, "Babe, you've got to let me record this with my iPad because everybody's just going to think I'm crazy." So I said, come on, babe, let me do this. And so she did it. I got it on recording on my iPad. As I did it, went through it once, backed it up, and went through it again, and it showed the two different commercials. And then after that, it would do it for other people. See, and it was not only Robert it wouldn't do it for, it wouldn't do it for my daughter when she came over. And finally, I was able to record it. And after that, it would do it for them too. It was just so bizarre. So when I said is that Irene is saying, this is just for you right now. I want you to see this, and I want you to see that it's me doing this, and then we'll let the other people see it. Immediately after that, the tiger lily on the kitchen counter died. At some point, I would always be on the porch because we would sit on the porch, drink our coffee, and smoke our cigarettes. And after she died, I just continued doing it. I would actually physically lean over to light her cigarette with my lighter, act like I was doing it
Right.
and light my own. All part of my conscious effort to overwrite my subconscious programming so I could feel better and better. And no time in my mind was there ever an idea of getting better and moving on from my wife. There's nobody else for me but my wife. She's everything to me. So that was never even a consideration. I just wanted to see if I could feel better, I just wanted to see if I could get to the point where I could survive however long I have left in this world, with maybe some reduced pain until I could join her. There was never any idea in my head that I was going to get better and move on from her. That wasn't even an option for me. I'm having this conversation in my head now, and I've noticed that things that we've talked about, like I said, we talk about something and an image of that would appear in our coffee. But other weird things would happen. Like we talk about something, and sometimes I would imagine us someplace else talking, in a hot tub somewhere, or if we're talking while walking on the beach. And these weird coincidences started happening where we'd finish talking, and what I pictured in my head, I'd turn on some random show or YouTube channel, and that image would be there. And not only would the image be there, the people would be talking about what we were talking about. I thought, yeah, I'm either just totally out of my mind, crazy, hallucinating stuff, or she's showing me that we're actually talking about stuff, that it's actually her I'm talking to and having these conversations with. I was keeping a log of all this on a blog that I wrote. I told her, look, babe, you're just going to have to show me, give me some type of validation or something that I'm actually talking to you, that this is really going on. Because I feel kind of crazy, because it just feels like I'm just imagining what you're saying, like I'm making it up. It's just what it feels like in my head. But I get these weird validations. So it was either the day after, I can't remember. My son and my daughter-in-law invited me to go watch a movie with them, and they picked the movie. I go in, I sit down, and there's a trailer. So this trailer starts up, and I have the name of the movie that this is a trailer for in the blog. But now my wife's name is Irene. So in the trailer, there's this woman talking to some guy or some type of communication device. And the woman says her name, this is Irene. And the guy says something about, you're not going to believe this. It's Ghost. And then the woman says, it can't be Ghost. Ghost is dead. So right then I've got Irene, Ghost, and dead. All I'm trying to do in the theater at this point is just keep myself together. Like I almost burst out crying when I heard that. I was like, oh my God, that's insane. So the movie, which was The Dark Tower, a Stephen King adaptation, I'm sitting there watching the movie. And in this movie, there's this scene where this kid is sitting in front of I don't know, some other type of kid or some other person. And the kid turns to the camera, basically looking at me. And the kid says this, I can hear her talking in my head. And I was like, are you kidding me? And so that's one story. In the following 2 or 3 days, she gave me two more validations that were just as astounding as that, to tell me, yes, this is us talking together in your head. This is really me. I'm really there. I'm really talking to you in your head.
That's amazing.
I was like, okay, all right. So other experiences that I've had, I mean, I've got so many, and some of them are just too complicated to get into, but so many is just unbelievable. I'll give you a couple more. I had this dream, this really vivid dream, very vivid, that I walked up to the back of our house, and Irene was standing there tending to her garden. And I told her hello, and she says, she waves me up, And I walked up there and she asked me if I want a tour of our house. I said, yeah. So she gives me this tour of the house. And so it's like, as soon as we walk in, it's like this enormous mountain lodge. I mean, just spacious, enormous, beautiful mountain lodge. And my vision is incredibly sharp in this dream. I can see all these really great details. And across this great room, when I first walk in, there's nothing but a bank of huge windows. And I'm looking at snow-capped mountains. We walked to the house and she's showing me all these different things in the house. And the thing that's in my mind is like, this is like a big old mountain lodge. This is great. And it's at some point the dream ends, and I wake up and I type in several different groups and forums. I write down. I just had this great experience where Irene showed me our home in the afterlife is the way I interpret it. And it's this huge mountain lodge up in the mountains. It's absolutely fantastic. And that's specifically what I wrote. So later on that day, one of the things we always watch, one of our traditions, we always watch Wheel of Fortune. I all of a sudden realized it's time for Wheel of Fortune. So I went over to the TV, turned it on, turned it to the channel where Wheel of Fortune was. And I realized I was just a few minutes too late to catch the beginning. And so I paused it where after the first puzzle, the introduction, Pat starts interviewing the contestants. That's where it was when I got to the channel. So I paused it there. So the way that Dish works when you do that, it only records that channel naturally from the point you get on that channel. So it's automatically, backing it up so you can flip forward and go backwards on it. But that's where it starts. It's automatic recording is right there. I apologized to Irene. I said, I'm sorry, baby. I missed the beginning of this show, but we'll watch it. Let me make myself something to eat. We'll watch the rest of it. I make something to eat. Whenever I make something, I ask her if she wants to get herself a copy of it in the afterlife or whatever. So I go back into the living room and I look up, and it's not paused where I'd left it. It's paused on a commercial. And so I started it up, and it was the commercial before the beginning of the show. And I was like, there's no way that can happen. There's just no way that can happen. There's a setting that you can put on Dish to automatically record all the main channels, but I've never had that setting on, and it wasn't on then. There was just no explanation for how it got backed up and included stuff we'd already missed. So I was astounded. I was like, oh my God. So we were sitting there watching Wheel of Fortune, and later on, the full answer to one of the puzzles was Mountain Lodge. Here's another example of something that happened. I had ordered this swing bench because the old swing bench had broken. So I had ordered this new swing bench. And this was, I don't know, maybe a year, I don't know, after Irene died. And my family is all on board with this, and they have had their own experiences of Irene. Usually when you get those things like that you order, they put in the little tools that you need to put them together, like a little wrench or a little Allen wrench or whatever. But this one came without the Allen wrench that they needed to put it together. So my daughter and my grandson and her boyfriend were all there, and they were all participating in trying to put this thing together for me. Now I had, maybe 3 or 4 loose Allen wrenches somewhere that my dad who died, I got them from his toolbox and just put them in my toolbox. So I've got this little, 1.5 foot long by 8 inch or whatever tall hand carry toolbox that the lid, is hinged. You open it up like a normal lid, and it's got sloping edges and maybe an 1.5 inch strip on the top that's flat where the handle is. So we were looking around for those Allen wrenches. So each one of us independently went in, opened that toolbox, which is sitting right underneath another shelf. Okay, just to paint the picture here, it's going to be, needed in a minute. We opened it up, looked through the toolbox to see if we could find the Allen wrenches. Couldn't find a single Allen wrench. I'm going, where did I put these Allen wrenches? They should be in that toolbox. We looked all over the house. Everybody was looking all over the house. Each one of us independently, so this makes 4 times, went back there, opened the toolbox, looked in it, no Allen wrenches. Totally frustrated. My daughter does this. She's in the hallway. She goes, Irene, please show me where the Allen wrenches are. So she got this urge to look in the toolbox one more time. She went back to the toolbox, and they're sitting balanced on the top of the toolbox was a brand new full pack, unopened pack of Allen wrenches, and had in it the size that we needed. That was just astounding. That was not a case of finding that, maybe we all miss it, and finding that particular Allen wrench in the toolbox. Where did that pack come from? It was just a shelf over it. Nothing could have dropped down from that shelf onto the toolbox. Plus, it was balanced on that little narrow strip on the handle.
So you would have seen it.
Oh, there would be no way to avoid it because we all opened it up. And you open it up, even if it was there, we just somehow didn't see it, it would have fallen off. I had another experience. I'm not going to detail this completely, but it had to do with the remote controls and coming up missing. And then I'd find it where I'd looked before. And I just thought it was, just me missing it and absence of thought and all that type of stuff. And I had a very specific plan of making sure I didn't miss it. I created this whole system of doing things so I wouldn't miss where that remote was. And Irene made it disappear and appear right in front of me. And I know all this sounds unbelievable. Believe me, I know this stuff sounds completely unbelievable. But all I can do is tell the story, and I'm being totally truthful in this story. One other experience that I will relate here was when I had a full astral projection visitation with her. So I've had 3 astral projection experiences. 2 of them, she was in it. So in this one, I was laying down, imagining that I was talking to Irene. We were talking about our kids, and I was, kind of imagining her side of the conversation, and we were just talking. So it wasn't a fall asleep kind of thing, but I was laying down. And so I never fell asleep. But what happened is like somebody changed the channel. Like I was laying down having this conversation with Irene, and the next instant, with no loss of consciousness whatsoever, I was sitting on a couch next to her in a completely real and physical room. Everything completely and totally real. It was so seamless. The conversation didn't even skip a beat. Whatever sentence was being said at the time just went into the next channel, and it was being completed in that channel, and the conversation just continued. And it happened so suddenly and so completely. I didn't even notice it. I guess there's some type of subconscious thing that tries to make sense out of things or whatever. I don't know. I didn't even notice it for several minutes. And then I was going, I looked around and I was going, where did all this come from? This is the craziest visualization I've ever been in. I looked down at the couch, at Irene. I could see everything. It felt and looked completely real. I touched the couch. I ran my foot across the carpet. I was looking at details in the house. It was all completely real and solid. And I could hear her voice clearly. And she had gotten up and she was walking around to the entertainment center in front of us, lowering the volume of the TV. I was just looking around and looking at her. I was going, oh my God. So the conversation had kind of naturally moved into not just a conversation about our kids, but it was a conversation about, and I was fully conscious, fully aware at the time about what we could do for our kids from the afterlife position, because there were things that they came here to do that were going to be difficult to watch them go through, but they wanted to go through before they came here so they could experience these things. So we could only do so much. We had to let them kind of go through whatever they needed to go through. I was marveling at this aspect of our conversation. At some point, I just looked at her and I said, hey, babe, guess what? And she turns around, looks at me. She goes, what? So she's still standing over by the entertainment center, and I'm sitting down on the couch. And I spread my arms out and I said, man, we're having a brand new conversation. This is great. This is amazing. And I could see in her face just lit up. And it's like she realized that it was me. I don't know how you'd express this, from over here, like my conscious focus from over here being there now in my astral body or whatever you want to call it. And she realized that. And her face just lit up and she ran over to me. She leaned down, threw her arms around me, and gave me this big kiss. That's when I started feeling the bed beneath me on the couch. I was laying on the couch. I felt the couch beneath me.
Did you
Right.
know where this living room was? Have you ever been there before?
Well, it looked like a new version of the house that she lived in when we met. But it was laid out the same way as that. I guess that was the living room that we were in at the time, laid out furniture wise exactly like her living room there, but it all looked brand new. I wasn't waking up. It was just like that channel just kind of faded out, and this channel, faded back in really quickly. I sat up and I went, oh my God, That was a natural projection. We did it. I was so excited.
So I wanted to ask you, before she passed, you said you watched the Long Island Medium
Yeah.
show. Did you ever have conversations about being in touch with each other at the point where she would move on to the next realm?
That was something that for us that would really didn't even really have to talk about that much. We just, but we did talk about it. And I told her, you're going to have to let me know that you're here. I really, honestly, I didn't expect, because I believed in the afterlife. I didn't believe that Irene was going to end. So I was very mistakenly thought grief isn't going to hit me as hard because I already believed this stuff. Oh no, that grief was crazy. I tried different methods and different techniques. Another thing that happened that pertains to something I've already talked about was I was in this automatic writing Zoom group. During one of those Zoom groups, I had this urge to try a form of automatic writing, which was while I was participating in the Zoom with my right hand, with me not looking at it, I just started scribbling on sheets of paper. I totally expected it just to look like scribbled, and nothing to be in the scribble that made any sense, or there might be one or two things that might look like words or whatever, but it certainly wouldn't make any sense. When the Zoom ended, I looked at the piece of paper. It was like 2 or 3 pages, and all of it was, nonsense except for this one section. And this one section said, in order, my milk flowers show you I love you forever, my lover. Just like blew my mind, man. It was crazy. I've established a grief free for many years now. Very happy, very exciting, continuing relationship with my wife. We're both very happy. We're both very excited. We helped found a group on Facebook that is specifically for people who were with their partners in this life and their partner died and they want to continue the relationship and develop it as far as they can until they die and are rejoined with them. So that's the premise of the group. And I have been astounded to see how many people were already doing this that I had no idea about. I had no idea this could be done. There were absolutely no examples of this I could find anywhere, online, anywhere, of continuing a romantic relationship with a person after they die. I went to spiritual groups and people would actually get angry at me because they'd say that, no, you're holding them back. You need to move on and focus on this life. There was no moving on and focusing on this life for me. I was a member of a normal grief group, and I made the mistake of saying that I had overcome my grief. And I got booted out of the group.
What is the name of the Facebook group?
The Facebook group is called Love After Life.
Love After Life?
Now, we started that, me and another person who was we didn't know each other before this at all, but they had a lot of the same experiences and actually used a lot of the same methods that I used to do this, and we're getting success at it, especially in overcoming the grief and feeling better. We've both found ourselves in a spiritual group that believed that these relationships continue and believed that we could, continue our relationship and be back with them when we die. But we're totally against the idea that you could feel better. They actually asked me to leave. I posted the same kind of thing in there that I had overcome the grief, and then they just took the post down and messaged me and said, it'd be better if you left. So one of the admins of that group, who was actually doing the same thing I was, reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to start our own group that was open to the idea that you could have a happy relationship, what we call it a trans-dimensional relationship with your, quote unquote, dead partner for the rest of your life. And that it could be happy, it could be fun, it could be exciting, it could be fulfilling. And so we wanted to leave that option. And so honestly, when we started that group, I thought, well, we're going to have maybe 5, 6, 7 people, who join this group. And we have about 1,300 now. So yeah, we found a lot of people who were either already doing this and they didn't know, they were totally isolated. People would just think that they're crazy or just living in their grief and didn't want to let go and didn't want to move on. And then we found people who were in some incredible pain. Anybody's been through something like this knows how painful it is, but are now having fantastic relationships with their partner that include experiences that I never even imagined anybody could have back then. I didn't even know that there was this whole class of things that could happen to you and that you could experience with your partner. It's really been mind blowing.
We're coming to the end of the time that we have to talk, but you mentioned to me that you have written 2 books, and I was wondering if you wanted to share the names of the books and if you have a website or a blog post information.
The names of the books are Love After Life by William Murray and Forbidden by William Murray. And Love After Life is really, it's a very short book. I think there's like 46 pages. I put it on Amazon as cheaply as I could for the most people to be able to get it. Here's what I did. Here's what happened, and here's exactly what I did that culminated in me having this really wonderful ongoing relationship with my wife. In the second book, there's some guest articles by some people I have met since then and have become very good friends of mine who are doing this same thing. But it's basically a collection of things that I've written about this, more about dealing with how society and your family and even the quote unquote spiritual community reacts to this kind of thing, and the kind of challenges that we face, and the typical objections and criticisms that I address in this book. Those are the 2 books, Love After Life and Forbidden. We have a public website, redstreamsociety.com. We're very protective of the anonymity of the people involved. A lot of people don't, because of their jobs and careers, they don't need this information getting out about what they believe and what they're doing. I mean, we have some scientists in the group. The webpage is some videos that Mary Beth, who doesn't mind being publicly named, and I have made about this process and how we achieved it. And it's just advice. Everybody has their own way of doing things. They have their own individual relationships. Some of the things that we say may work, may not work for other people, but we have that up there. We have a whole bunch of resources on our public website, a lot of information about all this that would be helpful, I think, not just the people in this particular relationship, but anybody who has had a loved one to die. It can direct you to various resources. And the Facebook group is called Love After Life. The blog is called transdimensionallove.blogspot.com. I believe that's where it's at. These kind of things happen to me so frequently, and this has just become my normal life now. I just kind of lost interest in doing the blog. Gets to the point where what I do mostly now is work in the group with the people in the group to help develop and give advice and support to them.
I really appreciate you taking the time to share all this. It's amazing the things you're experiencing. It's always good to know there are groups out there for this because people do need it. It's just, how do you find it? I appreciate you coming on and talking about it and giving some options to people who might be going through the same thing.
You bet. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks for being here, and I hope to find out more from your books and from your website. You take care.
You too.